We'd like to share a story about our oldest son, Brandon. He was diagnosed with autism when he was 3 years old. We were new parents then, and dealing with autism those first few years was very challenging. Then at age 8, Brandon was afflicted with a second neurological condition, which proved even more debilitating.
Brandon's basic functioning rapidly deteriorated. He suddenly had difficulty walking, using his hands, and communicating. Simple daily tasks like eating a meal or getting dressed took hours to complete. Peaceful moments were rare in our home. Our once cheerful and happy boy was constantly tormented by intense anxiety and full-blown obsessive-compulsive behaviors. Every moment of our day was dominated by his intricate rituals, and we were under enormous pressure to anticipate Brandon's next inevitable meltdown when those rituals weren't followed perfectly. At home, Brandon often sat motionless, staring out the window, demanding absolute quiet. This was not our child.
We were completely baffled, and we consulted with at least a dozen doctors and professionals. We eventually learned that Brandon had contracted strep many months before with no symptoms, but the antibodies that his body produced to fight the strep infection had instead attacked his brain. This is a condition known as PANDAS. It had a name. When we got the diagnosis, our relief to finally have answers quickly faded, as doctors told us that there was nothing they could do. There was no cure for PANDAS.
We cried out to God for answers, strength, and healing. There were certainly moments of despair and exhaustion, but we knew that God loved Brandon even more than we did, and that he had a plan for his life. We trusted, we prayed, I cried, and the cycle went on for 18 months. We held a time of prayer and anointing one Sunday after church here with our small group, Pastor Mike and the elders, and we literally surrounded Brandon, offering up prayers for healing. As we drove home from church that afternoon, I stared out the car window thinking while praying, okay, God, it's in your hands. I know you can heal my son, but will you? Give me the strength to face whatever lies ahead. Suddenly, Brandon broke his usual silence and began loudly singing a phrase over and over. Nothing is missing. Nothing is broken. Those were lyrics to a song we had sung that very morning here in the worship center. And as quickly as Brandon spontaneously uttered those words, he fell silent. But I knew that his words were God's answer to my prayer. Heather, trust me. Brandon is in my hands, and you will soon see that nothing is missing or broken.
In the following months, Brandon gradually returned to the child we knew and recognized until he was completely healed from PANDAS. Brandon is 16 now. 8 years have passed, and he's never relapsed, despite contracting strep several times. He's also made tremendous progress with autism, more than we ever thought possible.
There's no medical explanation for it, but we know, and all who joined us on our journey of faith, that we witnessed God's miraculous healing power. We are Scott and Heather, and this is our war story.